Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging hour discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Tom K. Wilson, provides you with insight and guidance from his years of experience as a successful real estate entrepreneur on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate, and much, much more. Now, here's your host for Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
Thanks for tuning in to our Real Estate Radio Live program, your number one source for all of your real estate needs and education. We're broadcasting from the number one radio station in the San Francisco Bay Area, KDOW AM 1220, the Wall Street Business Network. I'm Tom K. Wilson, your host for the 2 p.m. Wednesday edition of Real Estate Radio Live that comes to you Wednesday and Friday at 2 p.m. and daily Monday through Friday at 3 p.m., along with my co-hosts Joe Cachera, Mike D'Ambrosio, and Bobby Decker. If you can't make the live show, you can catch your podcast on RE Radio Live, and you can catch my programs on TomWilsonProperties.com or on iTunes or on YouTube. Our program today has our good friend Bruce Norris on with us that we'll bring on and introduce in just a moment. You can go to TomWilsonProperties.com and sign up for our weekly newsletter. It has current events and economics as it relates to real estate, as well as our current products and so forth, and to direct you to our different things and reports that are on our website. We provide, Wilson Investment Properties provides quality cash flow turnkey residential properties and also commercial syndications with where for $50,000 you can buy shares of commercial and retail centers that normally only institutional investors can invest in. We always welcome your questions and requests for topics and guests, and we offer free consultation for those that would like to discuss their options for where they take their real estate investments. With us today, we have my good friend Bruce Norris, who is a 30-year investor. He's been involved in more than 2,000 real estate transactions over 30 years. He's a hard money lender. He's an active investor, both flips and long-term holds. And probably most importantly, he's a self-taught economist who is who to my mind is better than a lot of schooled economists because he got his economics and education out of necessity because he needed that information to make better investments. Bruce, nice to have you back on the program.
Tom, thanks so much for having me.
It's always a pleasure. You indeed, necessity is a big driver on learning, isn't it? Like you found out when you needed to realize that you needed to learn more to make better investments, so you started studying the economy.
When it's kind of embarrassing, but it took me 15 years to realize a thing about that. I had no idea why prices went up or down. The day it hit me, I bought a 3-bedroom house in Riverside 2 days after I bought a car for my son, and the car was $15,700 and the 3-bedroom house was $13,300. And I remember thinking, why did that happen? And why doesn't anyone else want it? I started thinking maybe I'm the greater fool. I'm the one that wants it and there's no other takers. It just scared me, and I thought, I got to get to the bottom of this and how this works and why it goes up and down with such velocity, and trying to get on the right side of that most of the time was my goal.
It's amazing. Who would have thought before that you would take on a personal lifetime of education, so you could not only learn what you initially thought you needed, but to continue learning and then become a one who spent a lot of the rest of your life and career educating and teaching others.
It's definitely the passion. I don't know how you feel about real estate. For me, it was a means to an end. Education has always been my passion. So to have something that I feel like I figured out and I get to share with an audience, it just doesn't get better than that for me. So any of those timing reports is like the highlight of my career every time I get to do that.
And you certainly, you have a very respected and long-running radio show, but I have to say that, I took on this radio show 3 years ago. That indeed was my primary goal, is I wanted to use it as a vehicle to share maybe what little I had learned, but especially the expertise and experience of others like you with the listeners. And that's always enjoyable for me to see someone get some information that gives them an aha moment and positively affects their life.
Yeah, there's very little that can compare with a thank you note, a heartfelt thank you note that says, you've somehow changed my family's future. That's just, I don't know what else to say. That's the kind of thing that just makes you smile inside and happy that you were able to add something to somebody's life. That's pretty cool.
Indeed. Well, no wonder we finally figured out, you and I did, that we needed to learn more about the economics in the marketplace. I always love John Schaub's quote, and he says he always asks people if they like roller coasters, and if they say yes, he says, then you're really going to love real estate. I don't know what you'd say about the stock market, right? we never considered real estate to be much of a roller coaster compared to the stock market, but we've had a few ups and downs in real estate too.
Actually, roller coasters, as long as you get some sense of when they happen and why, then you can usually put yourself in the right position. And so I'm kind of excited that there are those types of moments in real estate. Now, I would not want them to have the frequency of the stock market, where I was talking to Sean O'Toole yesterday, and we were talking about investments, and you wake up in the morning and the stock market's up 400 points, and the day before it was down 400 points, and it feels a little schizophrenic, and the explanation is one day it's this and the next day it's the opposite. To me, that's just crazy. I enjoy the stability of real estate, and I'm glad it has its moments of velocity going up, and I'm glad it backs off to where we have a chance to get something so inexpensive we shake our head and go, that's got to work out okay.
I know. Yeah, I was up at Truckee weekend before last, and I got a couple hours with Sean on Monday morning, and always, of course, a pleasure to chat with him about economics and what's going on with real estate. And indeed, we discussed how the market is really thousands of submarkets, and you got to be careful at overgeneralizing.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's a good starting place to. It's easy to get data about large areas. It's a little tougher to drill down and get them for the neighborhood and which side of the street you're thinking about investing on.
Yeah, if you're not in your backyard, you have to go someplace and pretend. Well, you're not pretending. You don't know anything. Camp there until you figure it out. Whenever I go in an area that I'm not familiar with, especially another state, I go there and try to get it a piece at a time. I did that in Grand Junction, Colorado in the 80s. I flew there 7 times, stayed there for about a week at a time. So I had, 7 weeks of time door knocking every property manager, every real estate office. I mean, putting together a team before I really bought one thing, and it saved my bacon, honestly.
Well, I love your analogy about the roller coasters. We can survive some ups and downs as long as it's not a cliff. And unfortunately, with the stock market, it's pretty tough to anticipate cliffs. But if you got a roadmap for that roller coaster, you know when to hang on and when you can raise your hands and shout, right?
Yeah, well, that's the hardest part. Is it's interesting when you're raising your hands and shouting. Someone like myself is probably looking to get off. And when the ride is over and it slows down and everyone has that sad face, I'm a buyer.
That's good. We could keep this analogy going on for quite a while, I think. Hey, I want to mention to folks that if you're listening to this either live or as a podcast before October 8th, Bruce is if you're not familiar with Bruce, he's certainly a West Coast rock star, and we love him up here in Northern Cal. He's coming up to the SJREI meeting on October 8, which is their monthly October meeting, to talk to us and bring us up to date with his thoughts and his latest research. And he's doing an all-day workshop on that Saturday, October 10th. And if you're interested in that, go to sjrei.org, and you can sign up. Or if you want more information, you can also come to tomwilsonproperties.com, as we're an affiliate. We'd be glad to help get you in. Bruce, on that workshop, I think you've titled it "Cashing In on Our Boom and Investing in Quadrant 4." Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, Quadrant 4 is the quadrant where we've divided the real estate industry, our industry, the buy and sell business, let's say, into 4 quadrants. Quadrant 4 being the quadrant where the prices have accelerated, and how it ends is kind of a similar ending, and most people don't decide to sell until you're back into Quadrant 1, and unfortunately, Quadrant 1 leads to Quadrant 2, which is a downturn. So it's about trying to say, where are you in this area? And so, and kind of like what we just mentioned, it's a very different experience if you're in a San Jose or Sacramento as to, are you pretty much done with your upside? And the decisions that you might make in those 2 cities would be different. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about, is taking a look at charts and other statistics for each of those types of areas and say, okay, if I'm an investor here, I'm cashing in chips here and maybe moving them to someplace locally that has a chance to still go up further. So that's part of what we do. We'll also have a workshop that we're doing some hands-on negotiating and hands-on just deal-making strategy. So it'll be a little bit different than anything we've ever done before. So I'm kind of excited about the day. I always love to teach, but it's going to be kind of a different way that we've done it than from before. And
how is that different?
Well, we normally don't necessarily break out into groups and have them negotiate things together. So that's going to be what's different. We're going to have a hands-on experience where we're going to have some scenarios that each side is aware of, and they're going to negotiate, and we're going to help them get to see if they've gotten all the information from the other side that they should have, so they could come to a better understanding to make an offer that would.
Super. I like kind of case studies here and emulate that. So it's going to be a reality show with Bruce Norris, experienced investor, educator. Glad to have him on the show today. When we come back in a moment, we're going to talk more about the workshop coming up and what Bruce's view on where we are.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
Nice to have you with us today, and nice to have Bruce Norris back on the program, 30-year experienced investor, hard money lender, and educator on real estate investing and economics. Before we get back to the workshop coming up and the marketplace, we just want to mention to you that Bruce and his son Aaron have been running for, is this the eighth year or ninth, Bruce, for I Survived?
I think it's eighth.
Eighth year of I Survived. Tell folks a little bit about what I Survived is. I went to the second one and have been to every one since and would not miss it for anything in the world. Proud to be a sponsor of this world-class event.
Appreciate that very much. it's an event that raises money for charity. Typically now, because it's got such great support from people like yourself, we raise nearly $100,000 a year for Children's Hospital or Make-A-Wish. And the event itself is we have a panel full of experts, each from a different facet of the real estate industry. Some of these people will be lobbying in front of Congress in the next year, and it's really about an industry that's trying to, I would say, protect its chips at this point. So these are key players and will be able to influence decisions such as, do we get to keep the 1031 exchange rules where they are, Prop 13 the way it is, interest rate deductions the way it is, etc. All those things are kind of up for grabs because real estate is really a pretty easy target at this point to take away some of the goodies that we think is normal. So that panel has been hand-selected. Some of them have been there before. Some of them are new. But together, collectively, they have a lot of power in our industry, both in California and nationally.
And outline who's coming this year, Bruce.
Well, we have Doug Duncan again, and I'm always glad that he shows up because for whatever reason, he's able to say stuff, even though he works for Fannie Mae. A lot of people don't get the freedom that he has, and so he has a lot of freedom. We have Sean O'Toole is back, and he's always kind of fun because he doesn't mind being controversial, let's say. Leslie Appleton.
He didn't mind standing up against the Goliath economist.
Not at all, and it's kind of fun. And I'll just mention one more, Leslie Appleton Young. She's the chief economist from Carr. And so we just have a lot of experience there. And what's interesting is not everybody is of the same mindset there. So one of those people that we just mentioned doesn't think that Prop 13 should stay the same, which is interesting. And so we'll discuss that because that's part of what I guess concerns me about real estate in general is that it's really been treated pretty generously with tax benefits and so forth. You know, making $500,000 on the sale of your residence every 2 years. I don't even understand why that was ever allowed, and I'm always surprised it still exists. But it doesn't mean it always will.
No, that's that'll be some interesting discussions. By the way, to paint the picture for you, this is held at the Green Room in the Nixon Library, which is a exact replica of the White House Green Room where the state dinners are held, and it's certainly a very patriotic feeling venue. About 450 guests. Bruce, is that about right?
Yes, that's the maximum, and I think since we're sold out, that's probably where we're at.
You've been maxing, and it's live streamed and recorded. If you can't go, you can hear it later, but it's nothing like being there live. There's fabulous networking. It's a black tie event. Aaron and Bruce, when they formed it, they wanted it to be a venue that reflected the high-level professionalism that investing is and is as contrasted to the perception of a lot of folks. So you have a networking opportunity as well as these great speakers, a wonderful sit-down dinner, and it's just it's a feel-good evening. And then we continue, for those out of town, we continue the discussion on back at the hotel and then continue on the next morning. So by the time we get back home, we're pretty saturated with thoughts and ideas, but it's terrific. Go to TomWilsonProperties.com. Go on the events tab if you're interested. We still have a few seats at our table, and we can get you other seats if when that fills up. Have Bruce Norris with us today, a investor, a hard money lender, and a great educator of real estate timing and economics. So stay with us, and we'll talk some more about his upcoming workshop on KDOW 1220 AM.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
We're happy to have Bruce Norris with us back on the program today. Longtime investor, educator, hard money lender. He will be up here in Northern Cal on October 8th at SJREI for evening presentation, and then on Saturday an all-day workshop titled Cashing In on a Boom, Investing in Quadrant 4. Bruce, how will, just to give him a little teaser of kinds of things they're going to be exposed to on this workshop, how does one tell if they're in Quadrant 4? It's always easy after the fact, right, to say, whoops, that was the top.
Well, Quadrant 4 is usually a long quadrant in time. It's years. And so usually what happens is you build momentum in the beginning of Quadrant 4. You come off of a flat period and then gradually go up. And then you hit times where it goes up in ridiculous percentages in a year. You have an area in...
Gee, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, and it's, gosh, you're so excited you're part of it. The problem is getting a sense of it's okay to sell while you're in that mood, and everyone else thinks it's time to buy. That's really what the training is about, is saying, okay, set aside your emotion. Let's look at this set of charts and see if you are now investing or speculating, because that's the difference to me at this point. I look at a set of charts and say, okay, my gains up until now have been an investment. Expecting it to go further is a speculation. Now, can you get wealthy on speculation profits? Yes. Can you get hammered if you stick around too long? Yes. And I guess that's what we're going to be discussing, is when to know an exit is appropriate. And it can be different, and it's even different in Riverside depending on the type of inventory that you own, oddly enough, even in the same county. So, and part of that is because of the manipulation that's gone on in the last few years. Not foreclosing on people has allowed there to be a glut of, say, certain types of inventory in the market that's just starting to happen in Riverside, and maybe it happens in Sacramento as well. We have a lot of 3,500 square foot houses for sale. They're going for about the same price as a 1,300 square foot house 20 miles away, oddly enough, because the 1,300 square foot house is being sold for a premium because it's affordable, it's a little closer in, and it still cash flows for an investor that wants to buy a rental. So we have those for sale sometimes, and we're pending in 2 days. If you had a 3,500 square foot house in one of these areas built in 2005, and you've got 80 of them listed at any one time, you have no pricing power. It's just interesting that can happen, and as an investor, we want to figure out how to take advantage of both of those scenarios. Like, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I want to know that I was supposed to buy that 1,300 square foot house 4 or 5 years ago, and I want to be able to recognize it's time to sell that and go on to the next product type or the next area that has a chance to accelerate as well.
So you're going to workshop. You're going to help us distinguish between the things that are investment still and which ones are speculation, and which ones and why something may be near the top. We have with us Bruce Norris, longtime 30-year investor, hard money lender, and educator, who teaches real estate timing. Is going to be up in up in Northern Cal for a workshop on October 10, 2015, if you're listening to this in time. This is Real Estate Radio Live, KDOW 1220 AM, the Wall Street Business Network. Stay with us, and we're going to ask Bruce about the marketplace and where it's headed.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
We have Bruce Norris with us today, 30-year investor and educator, hard money lender, who's coming up for a couple of events in Northern Cal here in October. We'll tell you more about in a bit. Bruce, I can't do a program with you without getting your current thoughts on current events. This is being recorded in third quarter of 2015. For those that are listening on podcast, and I got to ask you your thoughts about the recent Chinese devaluation, which threw a little ripple through the markets. How do you think this is going to affect real estate in the U.S. moving forward? Do you think this is an important event that we should keep an eye on and can have more impact?
I do pay attention to the Chinese investments because of the wealth that they've been able to create. It's not exactly like what happened in Japan, but it's also a little bit similar. They had tremendous run-ups in property value, tremendous run-up in stock market, and with that comes a lot of money that they dispose of some way, and it found its way to U.S. in some pockets of real estate. So when I look at China, I think, okay, there will be a day where that doesn't occur, just like there was a day that the Japanese stopped doing it. Will that impact our real estate market? It definitely will in the pockets that they were involved in. Will it be enough to bring down the whole real estate system and have us turn into a downturn on the backs of just what they stopped buying? I don't think that's true. It's interesting that because of that, we may have a GDP growth that's less because they're being less of a participant. We may have a 10-year bond that stays very low for a long period of time. So I look at it and I say, okay, we're probably going to have very, very reasonable interest rates for a while longer, and that doesn't hurt real estate. That helps affordability and allows people to pay more and more for properties if they're in an area that goes up. So I guess I'm not overly concerned. I do have people in my life that are. I got an email today that I spent 15 minutes listening to what he sent me, and basically the world was basically ending by the end of October. And my response was, I'll tell you what, if I don't see you November 1st, it's really been great knowing you, but I'll be honest with you, I don't think any of the thing's going to happen.
Well, it's not that hard when you look at some of these, the debt that we're in and kicking the can down the road and the different world events. It's not hard to work up a worst-case scenario where you can see how it could happen. But
I'm all for doing that and solving it in the way that I can.
But I tend to think more in terms of the more the center of the bell curve of possibilities and a little bit less probability on the skirts.
Right, and then there's only so much that you can personally do.
Yep, you just have to understand it and then be able to make your offense and defense related to it. Yeah,
I set my personal financial plan in place to survive a worst-case scenario, but then I let it go. I mean, that's the problem, is if you literally don't know how to let it go. And so it's okay. I read the email. I watched the YouTube video. But the thing is, I've been reading that stuff for 35 years. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you know the story about the wheat. The first book I read, I thought he was right, and I thought it was immediate. And he said, if I don't have 200 pounds of wheat per person in my family, I'm letting them starve to death, basically. So I went and bought 1,000 pounds of wheat, and I moved it for 30-some years.
Yep.
So, it taught me to, okay, I'll pay attention to what people have to say, but I'm not going to buy it hook, line, and sinker, and I'll make a plan that covers me in what I consider worst case scenario, but then I go about my day as if it's going to remain normal,
This is a really short-term thing to throw out, but do you think in light of especially the Chinese devaluation and their low oil prices and the stock market correction, would you guess that they're not going to mess with the interest rates, the Fed, for quite some time yet?
I guess I think they probably won't, but they probably should.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it would matter. I think it matters more if they don't, in a sense, as everybody's going, oh, wow, things are still bad. If they gave it a 0.25% hike, it would change almost nothing other than, okay, we must have bottomed, would be the market reaction in my way of thinking. I think everybody would go, okay, well, now we must be doing better and we're going to head the other way.
It's a tough political decision. We just got a minute left on this segment. I want to ask you quickly about affordability index, which in the past you identified as one of the key factors, which is a leading indicator of markets kind of reaching their bottom. In some areas now in the past, when we've hit 17% or lower, we've stopped in those markets. We're now, I think, in certain cities in Bay Area, 15%. You think that's still a good leading indicator?
First of all, the state number is the only one I pay attention to. So the state number at 17% is a warning signal. It's at 30. Yes, you can have individual pockets of an area. San Francisco, let's say, has probably gone below 10 before. What I think, though, is if they're at or near their lows, which they probably are, I would think investing there has become a speculation, not an investment. But generally, we have 30% affordability, and that's typically safe in California.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce. We'll be back for a wrap-up here and some takeaways with Bruce Norris, long-term investor, educator, and hard money lender on Real Estate Radio Live, KDOW 1220 AM, the Wall Street Business Network. Stay right with us, and we'll have some final thoughts from Bruce and tell you again how you can attend some of the events coming up. So stay with us on KDOW 1220 AM.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
It's been great having Bruce Norris on the program today. We've got a couple of events in Northern Cal. If you listen to the podcast before October 8, 2015, on October 8, he'll be speaking at the SJREI, San Jose Real Estate Investment Club. Go to sjrei.org and sign up for that. He's also the same website for the workshop that he's doing all day on the Saturday, October 10. And it's going to be a great event. All of his up here are that he does is a special time, cashing in on a boom, investing in Quadrant 4. And you can sign up for that. And also I Survive, which is on October 16 down in Yorba Linda at the Nixon Library, a world-class black tie event with great national and known speakers. and a great networking event and a great charity for a great cause. So if you're interested in that, go to TomWilsonProperties.com and look on the tab for events, and you can sign up for that. We still have some space left at our table, and we fill up when we can get you to SJREI and go find other seats for you. And if you're listening to this past that date, it's an annual event in October, and don't miss it. It is, if you're a serious real estate professional investor, well, we've had national folks say they don't know anything in the country that's a finer event than that. And on TomWilsonProperties.com, you can sign up for our newsletter, the number of white paper reports. There's a lot of education material. You can see what products that we might currently have available from Wilson Investment Properties for residential rental houses at cash flow, well, and in quality products, and also commercial syndications where you can participate in commercial properties for $50,000 a share. Bruce, got a takeaway or two?
You know what's fun about this business, Tom, is that the way that Norris Group is perceived now, it's very helpful in a sense because people believe in our intent. And that's what's exciting about getting to teach up in Northern California, is that when I'm standing in front of an audience, I feel like we've become a very trusted company. And I think that same thing holds true on that night in October where we do the I Survived event. A lot of the people there are relaxed and at ease because they trust us. They trust in our intent and that we're trying to do our best for an industry. And it's just it's been a fun ride, and I've been very appreciative that I've been able to enjoy that, to be honest with you.
Well, it's clear you enjoy it for good reason. Aren't our kids great? Bruce's son, Aaron, whom we all of us love dearly, was one that initiated the idea in honor of his mother, Bruce's wife, and it's just been a event that I look forward to. Bruce, thank you for all that you've contributed in education for all of us. You've saved a lot of us a lot of money by teaching us more about timing. We really respect and appreciate that, and thank you for being a dear friend.
Tom, thank you so much. I appreciate getting a chance to speak with you again.
All right. Thank you so much. Nice to have Bruce Norris with us on today, longtime investor and hard money lender and educator. And we look forward to having you back on the next program. Remember, the only thing that matters is what you do next.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Tune in, log in, download our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com. RERadiolive.com.